Really, really interesting question. And we have one more question to go, and then we're going to open up to the floor, or to everybody here. For the last question, we'll start with Sherry. I did?
Yes, you did.
I'm sorry, I'll start with you, Stephen. Excuse me.
I'm keeping track.
Okay.
You know, one of the advantages of being District 1, first in the alphabet, is that you always get to go first. So I did sort of have a little talk. He was very kind.
Okay, well, we will go to Stephen. The last floor question is, the City of San Diego can approve historic district designation over several blocks of houses or commercial buildings. In 2 minutes, please explain if you support the creation of historic districts and why.
To do that in less than 2 minutes, I absolutely support the creation of historic districts. Number one, they help to preserve the character of our community that we so much enjoy. They improve the quality of life of those of us who live in our neighborhoods, both in the immediate vicinity of the historic districts and those who spend time there. And thirdly, as we discussed earlier regarding the Mills Act, it ultimately increases property values in the area and sends more revenue to the city. So absolutely, I do support the creation of more historic districts. And now the national model.
That my thing started during his. I just want to point out that you already started. I'm all over you. Okay, I'll be seeing you a little later. Okay. No, but I mean, think about when you're a politician, you walk around the city. You go to a place like Point Loma at the very end of Rosecrans, and you see the low-level apartment houses that are totally open. You can walk through them, and you think, God, a gated community. How horrible, in a sense, you could sort of map out the decline of San Diego from open, really beautiful apartment houses that you see in the very southern end of Rosecrans to all the gated communities that we have. That's not progress. I think that what we're talking about with history, think about Paris, think about London, think about Barcelona, think about all the places. Why do we want, and I said this earlier, why do we want to preserve, why do I have an Irving Gill house? I have an Irving Gill house because it connects me back with the history of San Diego. And, I went up to Santa Barbara because that's where his papers are, that's where Irving Gill's papers are. And we found some pictures of our house when it was first completed back in 1912. And we were so excited, to have that. And you see, the developers of this whole group that has destroyed our finances nationally and locally, they're like the debris of history. They got to get out of the way. And then we have to have a way to figure out how to put together this rainbow of options and ideas. And the idea of infrastructure and renewable energy and all the things I talked about, but then also having that supported by preserving our historical neighborhoods, our historic neighborhoods, so that our kids know where they came from and that their kids will know. And if you think about it, does Paris seem to be somewhat affluent? I think it seems to be somewhat affluent. You don't see them, doing away with all their neighborhoods. And the other thing is this, we need to have a real city architect. So every time we do something, it's not about the developers coming in and telling us about the bottom line. Like with the Civic Center downtown, it's all the developers. Some wonderful architect wrote a letter to the editor about a month ago, and I thought, God, that's a great idea. We don't have a city architect because we're not thinking about greatness. We're thinking about low-level profit-taking and all that whole machine that's been built up with the developers and their lobbyists and the Union Tribune. And, I want to have a moment of silence for the Union Tribune. Did I already tell you this about the readers representative? Did I already tell you that? Okay, but I wanted to repeat myself. But I will tell you that in the advertising, I think we need to move beyond the four corners of the Union Tribune and the advertisers in the Union Tribune and the Building Industry Association and the AGC and all that. I'm not saying we do away with them. I'm saying that we put them in their proper place and we actually have a true public purpose in San Diego, a city council that represents the public interest, and do away with all this private profit-taking and having that be the sum total of what we're all about. It's not San Diego. It's not what our history is. It's not what our charter is. And it's time for real change in San Diego. And I think this whole area that we're talking about tonight, I'm very excited about the people that are up here because I think we really could make some changes in City Hall if we had this type of representation there as opposed to what we have now.
That's a very hard act to follow. I appreciate what Mike is saying. The vision, the desire for grandeur in this city. I don't think we talk about that nearly enough. And this change, the election will provide us maybe an opportunity to do so. The question was about historic districts. Absolutely, I support historic districts. They allow us to designate homes that wouldn't otherwise be saved or eligible for designation. It's an important tool in District 3, Shirley Ann Place, just outside of District 3, Island Air, even Burlingame. These communities would not have been preserved if it wasn't for this particular tool, which is so valuable. Districts allow us to preserve a snapshot of history. It gives us a sense of what a community once was like, and it allows us to preserve whole communities rather than just a few houses. It's an incredibly valuable tool. It's something that we've used well in District 3, and something that I certainly would support going forward.
Is this a great discussion or what? I'm listening to everybody up here, and I'm just going, yeah, right on, I am. This is just a wonderful opportunity to hear ideas and learn and grow. And I support historic districts, of course. We talked earlier this evening about that halo effect of how one historic property impacts the value of others, and we create historic districts, and there's this wonderful snowball effect that can happen, and we've seen it all over the country, as Mike says, all over the world, and too in Europe. My sister is an expatriate. She moved to France 35 years ago, and there they buy a property and they keep it for generations. They don't sell it. It's not something that you buy and sell and make profit or leverage. It's something of value. And honestly, back here in San Diego, I would like to see everybody's neighborhood one day become historic, meaning that as a government entity and a community coming to the table and working together, we protect the interests of everybody's neighborhood. Whether it's where you live or where you work and build your business, we lay down roots and we stay there because it's a place of value. And we've created support services around it that help it be sustainable. Whether it's the green energy, the old house with the tile roofs and the photovoltaics up on top, that save you money, enough money left in your pocket at the end of the month that you can make those improvements to your property, that we provide public safety so you feel safe on your streets, in your neighborhood, and in your home, and you want to stay. You want to make that investment. And so I would like to see every neighborhood potentially become something historic, something that has a story that goes back generations. And I think that's what's at stake today. Everybody is so frightened listening to the headlines right now, and for good reason, because our life savings may be on the line. We're seeing modern-day robber barons stealing from us and violating our trust. And it's time right here at home, right here on the ground, this is ground zero, that we make sure that the people who we appoint to these positions of public trust don't violate our trust, and that we all work together to create sustainable communities that have lasting value, and in a city that will grow to become historic, and that people will talk about as being the model, the way it ought to be.
Yes, I support the formation of historic districts. Given the many different types of districts, the geographic, the thematic, there are other types which I'm drawing a blank on right now. The contributing district and the benefits that we get from establishing the districts, we do need historic districts. The districts can provide better protection of our very important historical resources, and they also provide certainty to owners, developers, and the community. We also know that successful districts can become tourist attractions. So it's all positive, and we need more of them. I know that in La Jolla, our historic survey has been stymied for I don't know how many years. I know there's someone here who could tell. Anne, how long has it been?
Before 2000.
Yeah. It's almost done though.
With that, that is the last of the formal questions. Going to open it up to you guys. Would ask that if you do have a question, that you speak into the microphone so we can all hear you. And looks like we got a line. This is great.
Oh, just happened, huh?
You shouldn't be able to ask any questions.
Mike, you'd be in a much worse mood if Scott Peter was sitting at this table.
No, I was going to ask you some questions then.
So my question is very simple. What do you think the campaign contributions that you receive says about you?
You're keeping track, right?
Yes.
Since I probably have the least number of those, I will say. One thing I think we should do is I don't think we should raise the campaign contributions to $1,000. I think that's a big mistake. I don't know if you know that's what the Ethics Commission is currently proposing. I think we should oppose that. I oppose that. $300 is a lot of money for someone to give. I mean, what is it for City Council? 270. Okay, so it's $320 for citywide and $270 for council. That's a lot of money. That's still a lot of money. And you don't need to be getting people giving $1,000. That's an awful lot of money to give to somebody in a local election.
The question was, what does it say about me? I think it would say that I'm transparent. I have taken money from developers, so is my opponent. The difference between us is that my contributions are disclosed and they're reported. About half of my opponent's campaign has been funded by himself in the structure of a loan. That's a loan that will come due at the end of the campaign, of which he can pay back any way he sees fit, including taking money from developers, taking money from folks who will be voting on their issues on the city council. What I've chosen to do is to be extremely transparent, to report all of my contributions, and to lay them out there. My opponent has not done that. I think what it says is I'm transparent, and he is not.
And I think $270 is a pretty healthy limit on these contributions too. And the big reason for that is that I think it's real important to keep these campaigns for local office grassroots. We've got a broad base of support from all kinds of folks, people in the district. The other day we received a check in the mail for $2 from a lady who lives in the district who said she just wanted to help, and we appreciate it. Especially in this economy, it's great to be able to communicate with voters and keep the lights on and continue the campaign. But I think that it's clear from my long reputation here in San Diego as the troubleshooter, as an advocate for the public. I appreciate all of the support, but I will vote with my conscience and do what I believe is the right thing on behalf of not just my 150,000 constituents in District 7, but everybody here in San Diego, because we all have a stake in the outcome.
My contributions show a very wide-based support within my district. I have a very strong nonpartisan support base. I have given my campaign money, but my opponent, the remaining opponent, has given himself quite a bit more. He still carries a $1.15 million debt from 2004 that was grandfathered in, and hopefully mine will be paid off. It's $20,000. So raising money is the hardest part of campaigning, as far as I'm concerned. And if we could go to clean elections, that would be quite a boon for everyone. And we need to look into that, most definitely.
Well, that was kind of interesting. My opponent turned a question about campaign contributions into an attack on me. Let's lay out a few facts here. Todd Gloria has taken in excess of $30,000 from developers and registered lobbyists. It's easy enough to go to the city clerk's website and look at the contribution records and verify that for yourself. It's a matter of public record. One of my concerns with the current city council is that so many council members side with developers after taking not only many contributions, but bundled contributions. Todd has taken bundled contributions from major development firms time and time again, and I think that that ought to be known. Any number of registered lobbyists have given to his campaign. Several of the board members on CCDC have given to his campaign. It's all a matter of public record, and you can look at that for yourself and decide yourself what you care to make of that. Now, as for the fact that I have given my own campaign money, you bet I have. I'm not taking a lot of money from developers. And I have been working for more than 20-something years. I like to think I live my life with good fiscal discipline. I drive an older car. I live within my means. I have led a modest life, and I've saved money all along the way. And why did I save money? I saved money so that I would have it when I wanted to do something important. And there is nothing more important to me than standing up for what I believe, standing up for our neighborhoods, and trying to improve the quality of life of the people who live in our neighborhoods. That is exactly what I want to spend my money on. It's in the public record. You're welcome to look at it, and I'm proud of it.
How many questions do I get?
Well,
He has to answer them.
That's right.
Okay?
As long as you propose a solution, that's fine. Yep.
Well, my name is Rafael, and I'm a recent resident of District 3 and ex-resident of District 1. And I have one question for Mr. Gloria to start off, and since we're on the contributions issue. You said that you are being transparent about your contributions, and I want you to be transparent about the 9 contributions from the high-ranking officials in Manchester Navy Broadway complex that you took. And why is it that you took those contributions?
Can you give me the 9 names?
I don't know the 9 names.
But who gave you the question?
It was from the reading.
Okay.
Excellent systems.
That's okay. Oh, I see what you're doing.
Defense contract.
Yeah. Well, let me start by saying that I think my opponent reiterated my point, which is there was no explanation of how the loan will be repaid. The folks that you disagree with me taking money from will very likely be the same people if he's successful in fundraising. And, you know, I think he conceded the point to me. The question that you have, I did not take that money. And what my opponent has chosen to do is to suggest that I'm somehow in the pocket of Doug Manchester, which is the low road, and it is nothing but gutter politics. What he's trying to do is say that I'm somehow in support of Proposition 8, which is madness. If taking money from Doug Manchester bought anything, what did it buy him? Well, currently I oppose the Navy Broadway complex. I am leading an effort to boycott his hotel because of his support of Proposition 8. And I am, I don't know that got him anything, but it is incorrect. Give me the names and I'll be happy to look back at it. But I think if anything what it says is that I will take money. I have a broad base of support. I have over 1,200 individual contributors. And to the extent that I have money from developers, so does my opponent. I have money also from nonprofit executives, from people in the business community, teachers. Marty, your story is repeated over and over again in my campaign. I had a gentleman come by my booth at the Adams Avenue Street Fair who gave me $3, again, because he wanted to help. So I appreciate the question, and I'd be happy to talk to that gentleman later if he can provide the names. The line's right there.
I don't think everybody has to answer that question. Ready to go, absolutely.
All right, Todd brings up a few points. One is, how do I intend to repay the loan? Frankly, I don't really. I am putting my own money into this race. I absolutely will not take money from people. Well, what he's alluding to is the fact that if you loan your campaign money, there is a 100-day window after the election in which people can continue to contribute to your campaign with which to repay the loan. And so Todd is suggesting that at that point I'm going to say, okay, developers, give me all your money. Absolutely not. I think hopefully you know that that's not what I'm going to do. I am not going to take any money from any people with any business before the city to repay that loan. Frankly, I don't expect to repay any or most of that loan at all. It's my money and I'm giving it to the campaign. I have no real idea what Prop 8 had to do with the discussion there, so I'll just let that one go. Todd suggested I have taken developer money. The developer money that I'm aware of that I have taken, and Todd can correct me if he's familiar with others, Matt Strauss, Larry Cushman gave us both money. Andrew Spurlock, who's landscape architect, gave me money. And I've taken money from one registered lobbyist, and that is Marco Gonzalez, who's an environmental attorney. In contrast, let's take a look at the bundled contributions that Todd has taken. More than $30,000 from special interests, 4 of the 7 directors on the board of the troubled CCDC, and I mean, the list goes on and on. In entirety, more than $30,000 from developers and registered lobbyists. So feel free to compare the two. I welcome that contrast, and you're more than welcome to go onto the city's website and look at how those numbers break down and draw any conclusions from that you will.
You know, this is really hard for me to take because I'm not used to this kind of conflict. Involving somebody else.
Thank you, Mike, for sitting between us and keeping the peace.
I love it. I love it. Keep going, guys.
We're ready, Mr. Moderator. I've never met a national monument before in my life. Two things. I won't ask a question, so we're not going to have a lot of time wasting on this. 2 things, if you would, please. First, I want to say to all 5 of you, thank you very much. To have 5 major candidates come to this place and talk to us about a topic, quite honestly, you never heard of before I invited you. It's a monument to something, and I'm about to tell you what it is. It's a monument to your willingness to come and listen to ordinary people tell you what their interests are, rather than your own interests. Thank you very much for coming. I didn't introduce myself, so I will now. I am still Jim Warner. I do still live in City Heights, which is still America's finest community. One of the things I know something about is redevelopment. I'm prepared to stand toe-to-toe with Mel and with Ian. I'm prepared to stand toe-to-toe with Marty and anybody up there, including Mike. I'll stand toe-to-toe with Janice Weinrich, with Bill Anderson, and with the mayor. I take second to nobody on redevelopment. So I'm not going to ask you a question, I'm going to tell you something. It doesn't make a bit of difference how redevelopment is restructured by the city. Redevelopment will still occur, and there will still be occasional mismanagement. No structure will change either of those. Forget about crying this structure or that structure or the other. Now, what should you be afraid of in the restructuring of the redevelopment agency? You should be desperately frightened of the mayor's plan to establish a redevelopment czar over the whole damn thing, and, ready for this, to appoint Jim Modafferi. That should frighten you. Yes, all of you who are surprised about that are advised that one of the things I have in this city is a lot of friends in low places. I sort of know what's going on. So when it comes to restructuring the redevelopment agency, don't be worried. When it comes to appointing the redevelopment czar, be terrified. Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator.
Hello, my name is David Swearings. I'm a 28-year resident of the 8th District, citizen of the world with a very local focus. I have a Mills Act question, which is as much legal as policy. The current Mills Act program has a progressive fee structure, $100 per 100,000 in assessed value. I understand from staff, the Attorney's Office has ruled this is not legal, and City staff has responded by proposing a regressive flat fee, which effectively institutionalizes discrimination based on class, consumption, income, and even race. Our benefit, our home from the program is about $400 or less a year. Many people get more than $5,000 a year. A progressive graduated fee structure, as adopted unanimously by council, addresses the issue of parity, access to the program. Now, no one ever told me life was fair, and I don't expect the council to propose that as a policy, but I'd like to see what you might propose to make this a little fairer, like the current program is fair.
Marty, you're up. I'll take that one.
This is complicated, and I think I would want to talk with the city attorney's office about what's legal. But part of from what I understand from the Mills Act, part of it is providing incentives for people to come in and make an investment in an older area and to improve a property and therefore help to improve the whole area. So bottom line, I think that whatever fee structure there is needs to be affordable and something that doesn't discourage people, especially folks who don't have millions of dollars, to be able to come in and be part of the program. So I would seek the best legal advice I could to make sure that what we have is fair and is legal.
Let me just say this. If you call Mike Calabrese tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., I'll tell him what you mentioned. You know what's kind of interesting? Think about this. In a sense, you have redevelopment, which means tax increment, which means that places like Grantville don't get money, because of the arrangements that they've made to move the money out, or money is not available for the fundamental purposes. But then on the other side, you have the Mills Act. So in other words, you have a tax break in order to encourage an affirmative maintenance of a historic district. Like, for example, let's say Bird Rock. I think Bird Rock's a disaster. I hope nobody's here from Bird Rock and takes exception with that. Okay, sorry, but I'm really sorry. I don't like driving by Bird Rock and looking out and not seeing the ocean. Okay, to me that's a disaster. Now, no offense intended. I'm sure you probably have good points on the other side. And if you run for city attorney, you can sit up here and my point being is that if you see that on the one hand we encourage historic, on the other hand we encourage redevelopment, and then the question is what are the values underlying all of that? And right now you see the all-out assault on the historic, and the mayor and company, basically, even in spite of all the things that we now see have gone on, saying that we ought to keep things pretty much as they are. Now, Jim, I don't know exactly what Jim Barndor. I need to talk to you more about what you were saying, so I got a sense of it. But to me, the biggest problem I see with redevelopment is you're just giving massive amounts of money away, like in CCDC, that you don't really need anymore. You don't need to intervene in the marketplace to give people extra money when there should be market transactions that are driving that whole process, given the fact that it's such an affluent area and there's no need to have market intervention, in my judgment.
I would definitely ask for a legal opinion. It would be interesting to know how the sliding schedule ever was approved initially. Why was that okay and now it's not okay? And, particularly because fees normally are used to cover the cost of whatever benefit comes from like processing the permit, whatever it costs to do that for staff should be covered with a fee. And the property tax increment is really the benefit that the applicant gets once they do get the Mills Act. So that would be based on the valuation of the property. It would be interesting to know how it started and why it is being changed. And Mike Calabrese will have to do the opinion, I guess.
Yeah, I'll support the most progressive fee structure that we can under the law.
I mean, I've stated earlier, my interest in making sure the Mills Act is viable and it continues to invite more participation. So the concern that you raised, I think, is valid. And yeah, that's what I would say. Thank you.
Your turn.
Hello, thank you very much for being here. My question has to do with upcoming community plan updates, and I know that affects a lot of different areas. Bill Anderson plans to organize what he calls stakeholder groups in Uptown, for example, for a review of the community plan update. Bill wants to implement a bifurcated process with a separate group of hand-picked representatives instead of simply encouraging participation of all of the members of the community as stakeholders into the update discussion. I asked him to eliminate forming a separate group so we can all talk together instead. What weight, if any, would you place upon a separate stakeholders group, handpicked and organized by city staff, compared to the elected community group representatives who hold public notice meetings? And if you do hold significant weight on the stakeholders group, please explain why. Thank you.
When we did the community plan update in La Jolla, we were lucky. And we had several groups involved, and it was everyone in the community. There were committees formed all over the place. People worked on their special areas of interest, and it had recommendations from both the planning group and the town council. I would expect that I would put little or no credence in a stakeholder group. You have a recognized planning group. You have other organizations that are in place in the area. They should have a history. It shouldn't be formed just for this simple task. I would really question it.
$10 says that if there's a separate hand-picked group, none of us get picked. And I think that's the point. We absolutely need to stick with the process of full public participation to get the broadest array of viewpoints and the most diverse participation. And that's the way we need to do these community plan updates, and we need to do them more quickly than we're doing them.
You know, the reason I came forward with the Neighborhood Bill of Rights is so that we would have built into the charter a mandate that the council had to provide the money to pay for the updates, because, you know, as you know, so much of it has been done through variance and with the developers paying for it on a project-by-project basis. The stakeholder groups are doing the same thing in Barrio Logan. The whole idea, there's a whole plan to do basically away with any meaningful involvement by the community planning groups. This is what Jim Waring was about. We need to really ask the Building Industry Association to move out of the mayor's office, because they currently, and I'm not saying that to be smart or anything, but the Building Industry Association currently basically runs the mayor's office when it comes to the development services. I like Bill Anderson, he's a good guy, but he's basically taking orders that they see the community planning groups as a annoyance. I see them as a fundamental foundation of our democratic form of government in San Diego, and I think we need to be transferring more power there, not to play to the audience, but if you've ever been to a community planning group, any group of people that are willing to meet for that long to talk about that kind of stuff deserves more to decide, because we can unload everything on them. And I say that to be both funny, but because why? Because you've invested in the neighborhood. And, you know, remember Ronald Reagan and decentralized decision making, and, you know, trust the people to make the decisions. And that's what we need to do. You have to understand, I know what's going on because I'm there and I get to see it every day. The developers are killing and have killed San Diego, and they've got to be put in a position, like all of the business people, they can't make policy. One of the things I told a stakeholders group down at the Otay Mesa planning group, you know what they were doing there? They were having the developers act as the community planning group, and they updated the community plans, and the developers paid for all of it. Wasn't that nifty? They just circumvented the, you know, and so what I said to them, and they were all nice people, I said, look, here's the thing, if you're on this side of the table, the only thing you can think about is the community as a whole. If you're on that side of the table, you can think about your own personal interests. But if you're on this side and you have a personal interest in this process, you've got to step over to the other side. And this is what I'm saying. The old way of doing San Diego, let's get rid of it. We don't need it anymore. And let's not be at the margin. Let's not say how we're going to try to make a really bad situation be a tiny bit better. Let's just change it all together. We need a fundamental change. And with all of the collapsing of the old power structure nationally and California and in San Diego, this is the time for you to step forward and be a part of this whole new power structure that we want to build that's more democratic and more public interest oriented.
Where'd Janet go? There she is. It's a great question, and I would hope that the years that I've spent attending the Uptown Planners Committee, sitting for hours, as Mike said, for many hours, you guys are doing the hard work. I just get to listen. It's a demonstration of the fact that I value the time that you spend, the input that you have. I've witnessed your planning group, other planning groups take bad projects and make them into better ones. your input is invaluable, and you should have maximum input into our community plan update, because we need to have those things to have legitimacy. They are going to be the documents that guide our community's growth, and I want you to have as much input as possible, because as unfortunately we know, often these documents stay around for far, far, far too long, which is actually where I'd like to finish this. I think we have to come up with a better scheme of making sure that these plan updates happen on a more frequent basis. I think we all know that we've been there, that we know they need to be updated, but we're told that there's no money to do it. Whether that's imposing an additional developer fee so that we're collecting money every single time, so that next time we know, like we do currently in Uptown, that our community plan no longer is reflective of our values, that we do have the money there to update it so that you and your neighbors can come together and craft a new vision for your neighborhood. We can no longer fight these projects on an ad hoc basis, and we can no longer wait until the city pulls the money together to allow us to have some exercise some control over our community.
I could go on and on, but I won't, because you're waiting at the mic to ask the next question.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think we've clearly said earlier that we've got it backwards. DSD should be waiting for the community to come forward with what they want. DSD is trying to trickle-down theory to give us what they think we want. Urban planning begins in the neighborhood. The neighborhoods know what they want. Now, I'd like to go to, and Mike made that very clear earlier, but I'd like to go to an incident that, and all of you have had this happen. I live in a George Marston tract. It was one of his first ones. This happened to be 1930, and a house was built right next door to me at 1051 Myrtle Way. Today, the ground is stripped because the owner, developer, who's going to flip it when he's done, has totally wrecked what permits he had, so-called combination permit. We have 2 bubble skylights on the tile roof. We have, where there were no French doors, we now have 6 sets of French doors. And we have a trash pad, concrete trash pad, right next door to our property and right next door to the property line. Now, our properties all have covenants where you can't put walls anywhere within 12 feet of the property line. But they have columns where they're going to put hedges or walls or whatever. Historic Resources, when they found out what was going on, I must compliment them, they jumped on it. And I had a lot of help from people in this room telling me what to do. So they are really watching them. The trouble is, just like you said before, it happens at midnight. We've got an 80-year-old tree, historic, magnificent, big ficus they've threatened to cut down. They've already cut down a 70-foot pine. We need people to say, stop it. Your penalties are greater than doing it. And that's what you're saying. All of you are saying pretty much that. And Todd, I want you to know that these gentlemen have one of your big signs that was taken into their house. I don't know that I'm sure you know who they are, but I just want you to know, watch what they're doing, because I'm voting for Stephen personally, because I really get concerned when I see stuff like that. I made my mind up way before that who I was voting for, but it concerns me when I see them carry one of your big signs inside. Can I just make a suggestion that you call Diane Silva Martinez tomorrow on the code enforcement issue, just to see if there might be something there we can do there? I'm happy. I'm surprised you didn't ask about Balboa Park. Does no one care about Balboa Park? Yeah, well, that's the biggest disaster of all so far. So it is, because we don't. Hold on, you're out of it. No, you're over it.
My name is Judy O'Boyle, and I'm on the North Park Planning Committee, along with Steve and AC Todd every month as well. I think in District 3 we're really sort of lucky. We have a wonderful dilemma of having 2 good candidates from our community running. I also live in Burlingame in a historical house that could be a standalone historical house, and the famous person that lived in my historical house was Micah Geary.
lot of good memories.
And he didn't do anything to screw it up. You know, it was just fine. My question is this. I think we all know that Balboa Park is a jewel for San Diego, and its period of historical significance really begins in 1914-15 and goes through 1935. There's a proposal now underway that is really brought forward by former employees of General Dynamics. Ron Roberts is supporting it with money, tax money actually, and there's some support among military veterans to move Atlas missile, which is Mercury missile type E, into Balboa Park in the area that's in front of the Automotive Museum, the Aerospace Museum. And this missile is going to have a space capsule on it, but it was never designed to deliver anyone to space. It was designed to deliver weapons of mass destruction. It would sit over 100 feet tall. And there's going to be a lot of political pressure to get that placed in Balboa Park in an area where it's master planned to have reflective ponds and promenades and the like. So I was wondering what your position would be on that.
Absolutely not.
You know, I was over in Florida Canyon the other day, and I was looking back at what the Navy has done to Balboa Park. Just destroyed the whole ridge. Remember, any of you remember when we were fighting the expansion of the Naval Hospital? Yeah. They've destroyed it, and you know what? Balboa Park's on its way out of existence. If they put in this new private trustee group, you know, think again. They don't want to raise the money to maintain Balboa Park, so they're going to give it to a private group so they can start having privatization. You know, one of the problems that we had as soon as I got done trying to save the squirrels, which, you know, I don't care if anybody likes it or not. I grew up in Balboa Park as a little boy, and I went to all the little train there and the zoo and everything, and I thought when they went in, but in all seriousness, they tried to get rid of all of the local parking over there by where, where Oak Globe is, where the parking is on the side there. They wanted to privatize. That's what they want to do. See, that's their idea. That's this group. They have no sense of public. They have no sense of public education. They have no sense of public responsibility, and they're going to privatize the park. That's what you're talking about. Is a subset of a much larger problem. If you saw the people they're trying to put on the board, and what their plan is, they're going to transfer the park to a group of private people who will then control the park, and it will not. I mean, can you imagine that? And that's what they're doing. So we have to fight that. We can't allow that, and we as citizens have to be willing. If we're not willing in 2008 to keep the park, what are we willing to do in San Diego? And that's what this is going to come down to. Does everyone know what I'm even talking about? Yes. Okay, is there any resistance to that at all? Are we all, okay, not too much resistance or a little bit of, don't be fooled by the idea that it's a painless solution with a bunch of really nice trustees who are just going to come in and just do what's right. What they're going to do is in New York they did this. They have private parties all throughout Central Park where you can't get access to park facilities because they're being used by private groups. That's what they're talking about. I mean, that's why I say Thomas Friedman book, his book, Hot, Flat, and Crowded, just came out, talks about the breakdown of our ability to take on any problem at all, unwilling to make any sacrifices. We got to change that, and Balboa Park is one of the places we got to draw the line. But legally, I don't know if I can oppose that legally or not. I don't know if there's a legal issue there. And as you know, I don't like to get involved in policy. I just like to stay with legal. I'm not being. I mean, I am being serious. I do have to stay within the legal, but I'm glad you told me that, and I'll have somebody take a look at that from our office who looks into Balboa Park.
You know, I want to take a second because I think this is the most important historic preservation issue in District 3. So your question was about a specific project that I don't support. But more importantly, what is the next City Council member for District 3 going to do for Balboa Park? Stephen or I will preside over the centennial of this park. And it is an opportunity to do something truly special. Mike was talking earlier about vision. This is a vision moment. This is a vision opportunity. We can take the centennial and we can have a cake cutting and a ribbon cutting and just call it a day and have some happy talk, or we can do the dirty business of really going in there and making sure that we restore the park for the next 100 years. You know, a past generation of San Diegans gave us that gift. What is this generation of San Diegans going to do to renew and restore the park? 2015 is our opportunity. The time is now, and you need a council member with the knowledge and the experience to get that particular task done. I feel particularly well qualified to do that.
Okay. And Balboa Park is such a great jewel right here in San Diego. We do need to make an investment in it, and we do need to fight for its survival. And that means the money to restore the buildings. It means keeping it open to the public. It means a professional staff that maintains it so that it doesn't fall into disrepair again. But there are smaller versions of Balboa Park all over the city that we need to honor as well. In the 7th District, we have, this summer, pools were closed because the city said it didn't have enough money to keep the pools open. The city council approved enough money to pay the legal fees for members of the city council who got in legal trouble, but not to save money for parks and recreation centers. Mission Trails Regional Park, 7,500 acres of open space. That's a great jewel in our presence. And each community, I think, does need to stand up and say, enough. We're not going to give these things away. We're not going to continue to squander. We are going to make those long-term investments that we need to make and set our priorities and be real clear about them. So Balboa Park, absolutely, we've got to maintain the integrity, and somehow an Atlas missile in the middle of the park doesn't seem to communicate what it's supposed to be about.
As far as Atlas Centaur missiles, I'm rather fond of them. They put me through school. But I remember it being in Missile Park, and I don't know why I can't stay in Missile Park. That's where they were designed and built. It doesn't belong in Balboa Park. In answer to your question.
I've recently realized that downtown has gone through very much redevelopment, and it looks amazing, and there are a lot of new citizens and more tourist attractions and whatnot. But the bad side of that is that about 1,500 homeless people in San Diego have been pushed out, and I've talked to them and seen their side of the story. And I've also realized that the city has enacted some ordinances limiting people to stay in parks only 30 minutes. Or young kids that are maybe like 15 or 16 and don't have anywhere to go and only hang out at the parks, where do you expect them to go? Where do you expect them to go once night falls and where there is now a high-rise and that used to be their squat, where do you expect them to sleep? So how are you as a city council or city attorney going to address both sides of the development, the good side of the development of downtown and the bad side, or the troubled side?
Well, I don't see this as necessarily an issue of development. You know, we've created a minimum wage economy in San Diego, where 2/3 of the jobs created in the last 10 years are minimum wage jobs that don't offer health benefits. We've undermined working families who are trying to maintain homes, carry a mortgage, and as a community, I think we have to do a better job of creating middle-class jobs, green-collar jobs, technology jobs, life science jobs, and government needs to help bring in those investments and make that happen. I think we also need to hold the county's feet to the fire. The county has the authority over mental health care. They've got money, and I don't think that they're spending it the way they need to be spending it here in San Diego. The vast majority of homeless people in San Diego are profoundly mentally ill. They numb themselves sometimes with booze and other drugs, and we need solid intervention to help these people out. And that means more than just a winter shelter. We need a year-round facility, one-stop shopping for people who really do want to get off the street, who have the capability and then can work a program, get medications they need that work so well these days, and really help them find a path to self-sufficiency. For too long, the city of San Diego, I think, has been straddled with many of these expenses. We got the bulk of the problem, the county turns its back, we need to start holding them accountable. The same is true with fire protection. You know, for 10 years now, the County of San Diego has been receiving money from Proposition 172 in excess of $200 million a year that was supposed to be earmarked for fire safety. Where are the fire stations? Where is the equipment in the unincorporated areas that could have stopped these wildfires from coming into San Diego over the course of the last 5-6 years? I think the city of San Diego needs to get tough and demand more from its partner, the county, and then get that year-round shelter open. Let's provide real holistic care to these folks and help them create a life where they don't have to be in somebody's doorway. That's my message.
I'm not going to add much to that, but I would like to say that the homeless problem is not just downtown. And while we do need a year-round shelter, maybe we don't need just one. We need to have shelters where the people are, where the services are. And yes, we have to go after the county and get help with taking care of this.
And I would only add that in addition to year-round shelter and ensuring the county lives up to its end of the bargain, we also need to demand that our federal government provide the proper care for our returning combat troops. So many of the folks who are homeless in our communities are military veterans who haven't received the kind of care that they need. We need to be compassionate toward them, not only now, but when they're returning from combat.
You know, the way things are going, there's going to be a lot more homeless people. It's not just going to be, you know, the sort of marginal people. One of the reasons we tried to stop condo conversions in the way that, you know, to require proper planning is because the condo conversions push tons and tons of people out of their houses, and then those condos are now sitting empty. You know, another example, remember I said before, you can't have the housing industry or the condo industry driving all the policy. There has to be a public involvement in that process as well. You know, one of the decisions I'm the proudest of as city attorney is probably one of the decisions that's the most controversial, which is I wrote a legal opinion saying that police couldn't put the homeless in jail because for the mere fact that they were homeless, since we didn't have sufficient shelters. We can do better. You know, they say the provision, Samuel Johnson said the provision for the homeless, the provision for the poor is in many ways the most important test of your community. Portland is doing better, San Francisco is doing better. I'm not suggesting we'd be a mecca for the homeless, but we can do better than what we're doing now. And, you know, we have a situation where we don't really take that issue seriously because the homeless don't have political power. But they are enormously intrusive. They're sleeping, you know, all throughout public areas. I don't know about the 30-minute rule. I'm not familiar with that. I'll check into that tomorrow as well. But the idea is that we need to do a better job of dealing with the problem of homelessness at the city council level, and it's a hard problem. But what we're basically doing now is it's really the fallback position of just letting them sleep wherever they can at night, and that's not a very good, you know, resolution because it takes a real toll on the local and the businesses downtown, and it isn't just downtown only, but downtown I think fairly would be the area that has the most impact.
I would just add, I appreciate the question because it doesn't come up nearly as often as it should, although this is an issue that does profoundly impact our neighborhoods, particularly in District 3. Being adjacent to downtown, our canyons have really become our de facto affordable housing in this community, and that's a shame. I've always been disturbed that our city seems to only care about homeless people for about 16 weeks during the wintertime, and that's not sufficient. That is not reflective of America's finest city. We do need a year-round homeless shelter, and let me just give you a small snapshot of how impactful this can be. I volunteer every year at Stand Down for Homeless Veterans right here in San Diego High School. Each year, we get roughly 800 veterans who will show up. Over those 3 days, we were able to place 73, 74 in permanent housing. If that 3-day effort can take care of 10% of that particular population, what could we do with concerted year-round effort? We need to do more. This is something I particularly would like to lead on if I was on the City Council.
Thanks, Doug. We are getting a little close to the end here. We'll have time for I think 2 more questions. I don't want everybody to...
Closing remarks. Thank you all for sticking it out and sweating it out. I do feel, and it wasn't the questions that were hot here, it's actually the room. So I do appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. A lot of people ask, why are you doing this? Are you nuts? How can you possibly consider doing this? Because I hadn't run for office before this. It is my first run, and the reason I did it was my activity in over a dozen local community groups and the failure of the city to hear my neighborhood. And the frustration grew and grew and grew, and I believe we on City Council should be doing what the neighborhood wants, and we need to be acting in the public interest, not the private interest. I was fortunate to win the primary. I was outspent 10-1. I anticipate that will occur this time around as well. If you haven't looked at my website, contrary to your direction, it's sherryleitner.org, and I do need help. And help means money, it means walkers, it means phoners. And I really appreciate your time, and please feel free to educate me on things you think I missed. Thanks.
Well, thank you again very much for being here tonight. I'm eager to get to work on behalf of our neighborhoods to revitalize our business districts and create good jobs, to reduce crime in our neighborhoods, to improve our public schools. But fundamentally, we need to preserve the character of our neighborhoods, the very essence of what makes them so great. I am honored to have the endorsement of Councilmember Donna Fry, who has consistently stood up for our neighborhoods, the Neighborhood Leaders Alliance, which stands up, of course, for our neighborhoods, and the Democratic Party. I will be an independent voice for our neighborhoods on the San Diego City Council, and I will stand up for the people. I have been doing this without taking tens of thousands of dollars in contributions from developers and registered lobbyists. I will be nobody's council member but yours. Thank you very much.
I feel like I got one of those dances, they used to have in the 30s where they just went on, and the last person left, got the. First of all, I want to congratulate you. This is exactly how a forum should be run, in which my opponent does not appear. Because I find that it gets in the way of me talking with the people that I represent, and I think it's just not useful to have him be there. All right, now number one, disclosure. And we went from a national embarrassment to a national model. The pension issue. Now, I'm a liberal Democrat. The Wall Street Journal said that I'm a national model. I know that's kind of funny, I admit. But the point is, it really is, they did that after they studied what we were doing on pension. And what we're doing on pension, we're also doing on foreclosure. We started the foreclosure litigation to stop subprime foreclosures. We now have 6 attorneys general. I was last Wednesday night, I flew all night and argued the case back at Harvard in front of the multi-district litigation panel. And we really are helping to lead that. And it's having a crippling impact. Skyline and Canto and other places that are marginal neighborhoods, these houses get foreclosed, and then all the other houses, they can't refinance and they can't sell. So it's having a huge impact. Water, we've got to do water. We're pushing as hard as we can from the city attorney's side because under the charter we have to provide water. We don't have water, and we need recycled ocean water, recycled wastewater, and we need to get the mayor to not go with the lobbyist, Tom Shepard, who represented Poseidon, and support that out there in Carlsbad that won't bring any water to San Diego. What we need to do is have it here in San Diego. Water has always been strong in water. If there's anything about San Diego City government, it's been that we've been really strong in water, and we're dropping the ball there. Fire, we sued SDG&E. We sued thank you, Sherry, I know you have some water there. We sued SDG&E because they started the fire. And you know what? SDG&E has never done more to prevent fires than they're doing today. You know what I'm saying? So they really are highly motivated. And I always like to follow the policy of that great American leader, Al Capone. I think, Al Capone? But Al Capone said, you can get further with a kind word and a gun than just a kind word. Roads, 70% of our roads are below the national average, and we've got another infrastructure mandate by the charter, and we need to do a massive renovation. And then energy. Craig Rose, who worked for the Union Tribune for many years and was head of the union from the Union Tribune, he now works for the city attorney's office. He's done a fabulous job. We've got to really go big time with all of this retrofitting of our solar and our wind, getting SDG to get in on it and to get away from this whole craziness of liquefied natural gas. I love you all very much. I hope I can serve as your city attorney for the next 4 years. I really appreciate you giving me some time.
Again, thank you. It's really hard act to follow. I want to be respectful of your time. For those who didn't get questions asked, I'll go outside. It's a little warm in here, but please grab me. My folks are here as well. I'd love to chat with you a bit more. I'm running for city council because I have deep roots in District 3. Just quickly, my entire family was born at Mercy Hospital in Hillcrest. My parents are married on Terrace Drive in Kensington. I live on Wilson Avenue in City Heights, which is the same street that my mother grew up on. My mom had her first kiss at the North Park Theater. We have deep roots in this community, and that's why I'm running for city council. My mom was a maid, and my dad was a gardener. And they taught me that if you care about something, you should work hard to make it better. I care deeply about San Diego, and I've spent my entire career doing what I can to try and make it better. I worked for 6 years at the County of San Diego in the Health and Human Services Agency, working with some of the neediest families in our community. I've spent the last 8 years working for Congresswoman Susan Davis, representing your neighborhoods and listening to your concerns at your planning committee meetings, your town councils, and so on. I've served on our housing commission, trying to do what I can to make an impact when it comes to affordable housing. I want to take those experiences and that leadership ability with me to City Hall and to make things go right in our neighborhoods for once. If you're like me, you're frustrated that crime is increasing, but our police department is short 200 officers. If you're like me, you're frustrated that our infrastructure is literally crumbling beneath our feet and there doesn't seem to be anything being done about it. If you're like me, you're frustrated that our conversation about transit in our region is always about what we're going to cut rather than what we're going to expand. I want to go to City Hall to address those issues and make this turn around. I have the knowledge and the experience to do it. I'd ask you to join with Congresswoman Davis, our police officers, our firefighters, the League of Conservation Voters, and a wonderful historic preservation leader, State Senator Jim Mills, in supporting my campaign. Let's get this done on November 4th. Thank you so much.
And just briefly, I do want to comment on the statements that were made by these people who stood online for so long for an opportunity to speak up. We do have to stand up for those who came before us, who fought the good fight, who laid down their lives, who made sacrifices that we can't even imagine today. We owe it to the memory of our mothers and our grandmothers to make things right here in this community. And we owe it to our community and to ourselves and our children and their children to turn up at the polls on election day and elect honest, responsible, responsive people to public office. Because in the last 8 years, we have discovered firsthand what happens when people don't vote or they vote for the wrong person and they put the wrong people in public office. At this table tonight, you have 5 people who have put their lives on hold. 6, I'm counting, it's late. 5 people who really have put their lives on hold because they believe in something beyond themselves. They believe in the concept of public service. We believe in the concept of bringing everybody to the table and listening to everybody and creating a community that we're proud to pass on to our kids, and creating a government process that's open and honest, where core services and core values are honored, and we carry out those core services and those core values. We protect the integrity of neighborhoods, the history, the tradition, the charm. We work our best to create good jobs so people can have money in their pockets and they can create something in their neighborhoods and communities. We keep the neighborhoods safe. We provide those basic resources we need for life. Water. This is not a passing fad. We are running out of water, ladies and gentlemen, and we have a city council that's directed the mayor to do something, and he sat on his hands. We can't allow that to continue. We need to build a strong city council that legislates, that goes out on a limb, takes bold action, and demands a bold response from the mayor, who is supposed to be following the lead of that council. We need to create a strong legislative body that listens to the neighborhoods, that listens to taxpayers, and responds to them. That's an agent for them. And you know who I am. I've been an advocate for the public for the last 22 years here in San Diego. You've called, you've written, you've emailed. You've told me about the problems in your neighborhoods. You've told me about the problems with somebody who's ripped you off or is stealing from somebody you love. And we've gone out and we've made a difference. And we've done it together. It wasn't about me. It was about you being the eyes and ears and standing up for your neighborhood and standing up for what's right and standing up for the values that we all appreciate and honor. And so those comments that were made, I think we all have to take it to heart. It does make a difference. On election day, it does make a difference. We all feel that. And we know that we not only owe it to those who came before us, but we owe our kids and their kids an opportunity to have a city that is as great as we've appreciated, certainly, and a government that's as good as San Diego. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. This is our pleasure. I just want to thank everybody for coming. I'm Ron May. I'm the chairman of the Neighborhood Historic Preservation Coalition. I hope you enjoyed tonight. We put a lot of work and effort into making this right for you. And it's my understanding that Channel 10 did come, and we're going to be on the TV news tonight on Channel 10 News. So you've got time to get home and take your shoes off and take on the TV. Thank you. Enjoy some good comments. Thank you for coming.